All right, so today on our podcast, I have a special guest, my husband, Colin. So, with many of the questions you guys have asked about him, I figured he would be a great guest. So, here he is. He's agreed to come on the show. And of course, if you have any questions, any follow-up questions, if you'd like to see him back or any other questions or anything like that, just let us know. He could certainly be a regular guest on the show. So one of the main questions that had come across was, when we first met, did you always see my perspective or my point of view? And tomorrow we will have been married for 9 years. And it's kind of funny because when we started dating, I was running a lot, I was vegan, I was gluten-free, and totally different nutritionally than where I am now. So I'll let Colin talk a little bit about his upbringing, because we both come from medical backgrounds, and just his experience with my point of view and things he's taught me, and kind of go from there.
So my father was a surgeon, my mother was a nurse. Grew up with a pretty wide understanding of Western medicine, but nutrition-wise, we were pretty all over the place. We did a lot of fast food, running around to soccer games, sporting events, different kind of things. I've got a brother and sister, so it was kind of easy, convenient food all the while. And then in 2010, my family and I opened up a restaurant, so owner-operator, and that is coincidentally when I met Heather. And our first couple of dates went really well, and then on the third date she told me she was vegan, gluten-free, and I think there was one other in there, but I didn't even know what gluten was at that point in time. I mean, I knew it was flour, but I didn't know that the sensitivity to it and what was causing it and everything. So in order to try and get to her level and a better understanding of it, spent some time researching it, and kind of came around, and that was kind of the beginning of our nutritional journey together. And like she said, we've come a long way since then. So yeah,
and you kind of grew up, again, like in the medical model, vaccines, antibiotics, not really thinking of food as medicine, just kind of thinking of food as enjoyment and nourishment. So I think that's kind of been a shift since
absolutely.
We've met.
Yep. And we do a lot of home cooking. You know, my mother would always try and cook as much as she could, and it was always delicious. And I think at the same time, food itself has gotten less clean since then, as far as antibiotics go and what they're putting into it, what you're getting out of it. Just the regular run-of-the-mill everyday meal that you get at the store now is not quite as nutritious or, as we said, clean as it used to be. So Heather kind of opened my eyes to the organic side of things, the non-GMO side of things, and then it was kind of an education in and of itself that certain labels and certain texts and wording that are on different boxes, gluten-free, that doesn't always mean that, or non-GMO isn't always the healthiest, or free range versus cage-free when it comes to eggs or chicken. That's a whole world in and of itself. So that's been an experience.
Yeah, and I think, since we met, being gluten-free, there weren't that many options out there, but now, of course, there's so many options, thankfully, and there's so many options for organic. And for me, when we met, I always like to try diets out on myself, so at that point I was vegan, and then I just started feeling awful. My knees hurt from running, so I started to add eggs in, and then just because of convenience with where we live and dating, I started to add more fish in, and then more chicken, and then just with the research coming out and how I felt with trying to prevent any autoimmune from coming out, I shifted more towards kind of a organic, grass-fed, carnivore keto. And he actually told me when I was diagnosed, when I caught my own Hashimoto's from my lab work, he said, you should check out Jordan Peterson and his daughter Michaela, because they have autoimmunes and they nearly reversed their autoimmunes with diet. And I said, no, you just can't do carnivore or keto. And you can in moderation, right? Everything in moderation. So that's kind of what shifted me towards the carnivore and keto. And so now it's kind of funny because we're at the point where Colin's doing research, he's reading things, and he'll suggest something. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. And then I start looking at it on my own, or then I start adding it into my diet, and I feel completely different. So it's kind of cool to see that come full circle, that he's introduced things to me.
And simultaneously, you know, as we've kind of evolved on this journey together, when we were running and everything, I started getting, you know, tight shins and the calf muscles, and my Achilles tendon was acting up. And she suggested, well, why don't you cut out gluten? And I was like, gluten's in everything. But that was when I really started to explore that as an option, and eating a little cleaner, cutting out the carbs, cutting out the wheat and the grains, and going more seafood, more vegetable. What I found was actually the inflammation went away. I didn't even need any serious treatments. It was just kind of a massaging, and within 2 weeks, I think diet cleaned things up. But the biggest thing for me, I was a big beer drinker, and ironically, as my diet got cleaner and I cut out more carbs and more gluten, when I would have a beer, I'd notice that I couldn't breathe through my nose for 3 or 4 hours. And when I'd have pasta, or, well, I mean, with exceptions to stuff imported from Italy, which is a whole nother subject, but, you know, I'd have problems breathing through my nose, and I'd be achy the next day, and when I was active, it was more sore, and you know, I definitely could tell a difference in my own processing of that. So that was a cool little self-experiment. So I was open to it. I'm glad. I've totally cut out beer. I don't remember the last beer I had. It was probably a couple of years ago, but seltzers are a big help. So
yeah, that market's really exploded. Yeah. And even when, I mean, obviously I'm pregnant, so we're not drinking right now. But when we do, it's more vodka and gin, wine. Yeah. From Italy, so cleaner alcohol. Yeah. Actually, it's funny, I had a patient yesterday that came back from Italy, and she is celiac, and she was worried about eating over there, and she ate all the pasta, she drank the wine, and she's like, so why do I not have a hangover when I'm in Italy? Yeah. I'm like, it's cleaner, it's a different world. Yeah. So, and I know we've experienced that firsthand. So, and I think probably when we started dating, you weren't taking any supplements.
Nope.
Right? And so now you're taking some supplements.
I think the biggest one's magnesium.
Yeah.
I think magnesium's completely underrated. And the more I read about it, the more important it becomes. Not only for recovery from lifting or exercising, but just as a general well-being and balancing supplement. We started doing turmeric. I do turmeric when I feel like things are getting inflamed or when I've had an injury. We do a couple things for testosterone. Mm-hmm. Which one's that?
We do one called Testogain.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of like horny goat weed. I think there might be some saw palmetto in there, and just some natural boosters, herbal boosters. Yep. So, because of course, as you get older, you know,
almost 40.
As guys hit 30, testosterone declines significantly. So, more fatigue, the belly comes out, you have a harder time building muscle mass.
And losing the fat mass.
Getting that dad bod, which thankfully you've staved off with working out. And diet. Diet makes such a big difference. Yeah. So, and it's cool because from what you've experienced with changing your diet and lifestyle, you've talked to your family about it too.
Yep. It's interesting because my sister specifically started texting us not too long ago about what kind of options are there for getting plastics or clean plastics, swapping out plasticware for glassware or ceramics. She asked about options for deli meats, mm-hmm. which are actually when you get right down to it, they're not as healthy as you might think. But there are clean deli meats out there. I don't remember the brand we particularly.
We like Applegate. So if I give the kids something, it's like the Applegate turkey. Flynn loves, they have little breakfast sausages. I love their uncured bacon.
And there's no nitrates or...
No nitrates.
And preservatives, so...
Yep, they're a clean option.
Yep.
Yep.
So, and then, my father, the best one, I think, was my father when he was having back issues. My brother kind of went through the same journey, but when he was having back issues, came over and you acupunctured him. and that was a whole new experience for him. He's a career surgeon, been doing this for I don't know how many years, but came over, asked for acupuncture, and it was I think he put like 60 needles in him or something like that, and it looked like a porcupine. But now he swears by it. My brother has the same issue, has ankle issues occasionally, and he'll pick up the phone and he actually told me the other day, he tells people all the time now, hey, you should try acupuncture. Have you tried acupuncture? You should try acupuncture. So, which is a pretty cool turn of events for him. So
yeah, it's pretty cool to see that evolution. And I mean, there's a reason why herbs and acupuncture have been around for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're just getting the research behind of it. One thing I know that's important to us now that we have 2 and soon to be 3 kiddos is just kind of raising them clean. So we notice when our 3.5-year-old has high fructose corn syrup or dyes or junk food from anywhere, he is a totally different kid.
There's a 48-hour hangover.
And I'm like, where did this child come from? So yeah, because he's so clean,
Is a hyper reaction.
Yeah, both of our families kind of tease us that, we eat nuts and berries and we don't have any food in our pantry. But our kids eat so clean that when they're exposed to this, like Colin said, they're hypersensitive, and they're just totally different. So I'm a firm believer in having the kids eat clean.
Well, and what was cool for me, coming from a restaurant background, is there's a common misconception that things are egregiously more expensive if you go a clean route. And I honestly, in my experience, I thought that was going to be the case, but it's not been. Especially when you put things into moderation, as you said. If you sit down and you eat 6 hot dogs a day, or burgers and scarf things down, it's going to run the bill up. But when you start eating in moderation and more appropriate portions, you can kind of stretch things out. Now Riley goes through 3 pints of blueberries a day, I think, so that kind of gets costly. But
yeah,
but she doesn't eat much else right now, so
yeah, berries, they both go through berries like nothing else. Apples and peanut butter.
It's a feasible diet. So,
yeah, it's feasible. And don't get me wrong, Flynn hated fruit snacks, and I don't like fruit snacks. But we will occasionally, with church, do like the Annie's organics, like the little tractors and cows and pigs.
Loves those, yeah.
He loves them, but like 1 pack is plenty for him with the sugar.
He doesn't think so.
He doesn't think so, yeah. And like I've said before, we do hot dogs, we'll do grass-fed, uncured. And they're not really picky. I mean, Riley ate blue cheese the other day.
Yeah.
So, and I think the earlier you introduce them, the better their palate is. They don't crave that stuff. And again, our kids have never been on an antibiotic. We've never had them to the doctor.
Yeah.
Flynn will be 4 in December. Riley's a year.
Yeah, he just got his first cold, and it's a moderate cold. So.
Mild cold. So yeah, what I'll do soon is just make some elderberry syrup form with some horehound cough drops. And I'll share that with you guys.
Yeah, that's kind of your wheelhouse.
Yeah, but just the natural stuff. And it's so funny because now that he's been sick, I give him a magnesium gummy and an omega-3 gummy every day, twice a day. But now that he's sick, he's asking for his chewable probiotics in the fridge. He never takes those, but he knows enough when he says he's not feeling good that he asks for the probiotics.
Well, he also sees us taking vitamins, and he knows that's a vitamin, so I think he's replicating the behavior too. But it's all for the better. He takes it and doesn't. Yeah.
Yep, he's fine. And
he's actually getting it out of the fridge himself now.
Yeah, so. He is. Yeah, he's opening the little Tupperware. And then Riley still gets her probiotics in her bottle and her fish oil, so those seem to be working out well. Yeah. Well,
and the other thing I think with the diet that our kids are exposed to is, I think with social media and everything, and the ease of which you can gather information and knowledge and research, there's a new school of thought kind of developing, especially when it comes to kids, that it's not about when they eat or how much they eat, because they're going to eat when they get hungry, but not making it a task, like can't get up till you finish your dinner. If they're not hungry, they're not going to eat, and they're just going to fight it, and it's going to become a bigger issue and more stress than it needs to be. But I think we've applied that kind of laissez-faire approach to it. Flynn's not hungry. Now, it does come back to bite us in the butt occasionally when it's bedtime and he's hungry. And then you kind of have to put bedtime aside, let him get enough to eat. And then, but, food-wise, I think he eats plenty. His palates, he'll eat what we eat. He might not eat it at the same time, but, that's been a neat observation as far as parenting goes.
Yeah, they know their bodies.
Yeah, they do.
When they're sick, when they're hungry, they're not going to starve themselves.
It's surprising,
Yeah. And, I've mentioned this before on the podcast, how crazy it is for me to hear that patients say their kids don't poop. Like, our kids poop 3 or 4 times a day because they're getting clean food all the time. There's poop everywhere. And it's just, that's normal, right? That's how it should be. They should be pooping all the time.
Maybe not all the time. Is it all the time?
After meals, yeah. Like 3 or 4 times.
Gotta make room, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, the patients that tell me their kid doesn't poop for like 3 or 4 days, it's like, oh my gosh, no wonder they're cranky.
Yeah.
So, and of course, the better quality food, the better they grow, the more vitamins and minerals they have for that. Better immune system for the gut, like down the road. I know my family has autoimmune, your family has cancer, and some autoimmune, so, the more you can stave that off. I was just talking to a patient the other day that I grew up on fast food and vaccines and antibiotics and all of that. And my mom, if you ask her, she'll be like, well, you guys turned out fine. Well, I don't know if we did because we have autoimmunes now in our 30s and 40s.
I think you turned out fine.
We thank you. But I think, you kind of find that good, better, and best and do as best as you can for the kids so that they're healthier than you at that same age.
Give them the best chance they have.
Yeah. Because I remember my mom at 40, she was like 60, as far as her body goes and her mental attitude. And now that I'm 40, I feel like I'm 20. But I feel like you age better with your diet and your exercise and your mental health and all of that.
Absolutely, yeah. I certainly don't feel like I'm 40. Probably don't act like I'm 40, but yeah. That's not diet so much, is it? Yeah.
Let's see, what else have you taught me? You're always reading. The glandulars. You introduced the glandular therapy to me. So like liver glandulars.
Oh, yeah.
When I was having issues with fertility, I did a female glandular.
Yeah, what were those supplements I was taking?
Ancient
nutrition.
Yeah.
Which was basically all of the beef organs put into, because I don't like liver, I don't like organ meat.
Yeah.
Not really my thing. Haven't explored it a whole lot, but maybe down the road. But those are supplements that are all of the organs, and I think the Eastern medicine theory is more you are what you eat. So liver helps liver, heart helps heart, lungs help lungs, etc., etc. So that's kind of a cheat code for getting that.
Exactly.
Checking those boxes.
Yeah, just like our ancestors used to eat tail to snout.
Yeah.
We just don't do that anymore, and there's a reason why a lot of the centurion cultures eat organ meats. Mm-hmm. So if you can't eat an organ meat because of availability or cleanliness or just preference, the capsules are a good way to go. Yeah. So yeah, that's a really fun thing, and you're always sharing stuff with me, which I love. So a lot of our guests coming up, Colin has introduced me to and shared, so we have some really good ones coming up soon. Yeah,
I try to work out every morning, and I'll go back and forth between music and podcasts, and there's a whole world out there as far as podcasts go, of information and resources and knowledge, and just you could spend a lifetime learning about it all. It's amazing, and the things you don't know become the things you want to know, so you keep researching, and then it takes you down different rabbit holes. I kind of always bounce before I go too far down these rabbit holes. I introduce them to Heather because you're a much more efficient researcher. You can kind of cut through I forget the first time you showed me a report, and it was sponsored by one of the big name pharmaceuticals, and it was like, holy cow, like why would they there you go, there's the answer. Mm-hmm. So obviously there's a lot of money in nutrition, or lack thereof, without going too far into that realm. There's a lot of things that they don't want you to know. So I think the more you know, the more research you do on your own, the better off you'll be in the long run.
Yeah, you almost have to be your own advocate anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like people are pushing for that more and asking their doctors for tests. And I've heard so much lately that their doctors are refusing to run those tests. And I don't know if it's because of, then they're liable to do something about it, or they just don't know what to do.
Sure.
But yeah, that's interesting. And then, going, like you said, going down that rabbit hole with traditional medicine being a sickness model, and then nutrition, diet, exercise, mental health being preventative. It's kind of like the Matrix, right? Once you take that pill, you see the other side, and you're like, oh my gosh, this doesn't make sense. But then
everything else starts making sense, and you start piecing it together.
Exactly.
It's daunting.
Yeah,
it's daunting, but...
Yeah, so that's why I like to do research and dig deeper and see exactly what's
We have our own little tinfoil hats we wear at home as we're surfing the internet. Did you see this?
Yeah, if they only could see our search history. Anything else you want to share with our listeners?
No, I don't think so. No, I definitely, I've gained a whole new appreciation for nutrition, self-help, self-care. My diet was not clean when we first met, and I think you could speak to that. And then it was funny because, I was working late nights, working long hours, long weeks. I think I went a month with 2 days off or something like that. My routine was, can I say restaurant, Taco Bell, pizza, and chicken wings.
B-dubs.
B-dubs. And that was if you can you get a B-dub sponsorship? That would be pretty cool. So, it was kind of in a 5-day rotation, and it was just getting off late and picking something up on the way home, and kind of unwinding as I ate $30 of Taco Bell. And I think after we got married, it was probably, how long was it? Probably 6 months after we got married. I asked you to tie my shoe because I couldn't get my
Yeah.
So I probably weighed 175, 180 when we got married, and then knew I had put on a little bit of weight, but there was that day that I asked you to tie my shoe because I couldn't get to my foot, and you said, "I love you, honey, but I think you're putting on a little bit of weight." So I stepped on a scale and I'd put on 50 pounds since we had gotten married. So I wear it well, I'll say that much. But so that was kind of a eye-opener for me. And I also knew that we wanted to have a family, and I wanted to have kids, I wanted to be a father, and I wanted to be the best husband I could be. So I can't do that when I can't take care of myself. How am I supposed to help take care of a family? So that was kind of a moment for me that stands out as, okay, I need to reassess, I need to kind of change course here. I stopped eating out as much. We started cooking more at home. Because of your diet at the time, you weren't eating a whole lot. That was palatable or, whatever to me. Somehow you can fill up on a salad, and I can eat a salad and be hungry 45 minutes later. So to each their own. But that was kind of a big change. That was where my life kind of took a nutritional U-turn, so to speak. And then, I think we did a cleanse shortly thereafter. That was how long was that one? 90 days? Or did we do
it was 30.
It seemed like 90 days.
Yeah, we started it January 1st, and it was a very long January.
And it was
and then we got pregnant in March.
It was a completely non-inflammatory, so it was nothing was cooked, no meats, just raw vegetable, no coffee. I don't know how we did that. That's why it seemed like 90 days.
No coffee, no juice, no soda, which we don't drink anyway.
I think, obviously cutting out alcohol. Yeah. Not that we were drinking a whole lot, but...
socially.
Yeah. So cutting all that stuff out, I think I dropped 30 pounds in 30 days. Yeah. And it stayed off, which always seems to be the tricky part, is keeping it off.
Yep.
But then it was kind of reintroducing slowly, trying to stay away from the sugars, the processed grains, gluten and all that, and then going more with the heavy macros like proteins, and then reintroducing carbs in a healthy manner with imported pasta. And I don't know if you've gone into that with your listeners, but that was probably the most recent wormhole that we kind of went down. Why is imported Italian pasta not as inflammatory as the stuff that's right next to it made in America? Which, in my personal experience was a big difference. So
Yeah.
you know, kind of being able to make a quick pasta dinner was convenient, and it was also a nice break from, you know, just cuts of meats or cuts of fish and, you know, mixing it in with a salad or a potato here and there. So, you know, so that was probably the most recent journey we've been on, or the beginning of that journey.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, good deal. Well, thanks for coming today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and again, if you guys have any questions, any follow-up, if you want to have Colin back on and ask him anything specific with, you know, workouts or what he does as far as supplements go, or his news sources or anything like that, he has a lot to share. So just send me DMs or fill out the contact form on the website.